Good afternoon. I'm Judy East. I'm the chair of the Nevada County Council of Sierra College Foundation, the hosts of this event. I'd like to welcome you here. With respect, we acknowledge the Nevada County campus of Sierra College as the traditional and unceded homelands of the Nisenan peoples. For countless generations, the Nisenan have carried out their responsibility as stewards of this place, originally known as DASPA. Sierra College commits to an ongoing relationship with the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe and their future generations who are an integral part of the Sierra College community. And please enjoy the symposium. I'd like to introduce Christina Schrammick from Seroptimus International of Grass Valley, who has spearheaded this project and the symposium. She's done a fantastic job.
It's so nice to see all your faces, and as Judy mentioned, we have a short period of time to get through a lot of material, a lot of information, so we won't be taking any breaks. But I did want to just share a little bit about Seroptimus with you. Seroptimus International of Grass Valley, our mission is to empower women and girls and help them make a difference in this world. And we engage in a multitude of projects as well as fundraising efforts. And, well, who here hasn't had a chicken teriyaki bowl at the fair?
Oh, really good.
I highly recommend them. They're very good. We do that every year as our biggest fundraiser. And we use that money to help provide vocational scholarships to students and women, and grants to also our community members who also share the mission of empowering young women and girls. So that's where a lot of our work is focused on. And if you have any questions today for the presenters, we're not gonna have a whole lot of time, but they all have tables out in the lobby and they'll be available for questions there as well. So we'll probably have a little bit of time to take a few questions, but just not a lot of questions. And everybody should have a bag, and in that bag is a lot of handouts that has additional material for you to take home and digest. There's going to be a lot of information that you'll receive here today, and in doing so, sometimes it just is a wash. So we wanted to make sure you had something to take home to read. There's things in there for educators, for parents, and for teens. And all sorts of information about social media and how to make phones more private and safe for our youth, which is really important. The other thing that's in the bag, and it's attached to this card, is a raffle, a drawing ticket, and I would ask you to please fill out your name and your phone number and put it in the jar, and we will have a raffle at the end. One of the things that we are doing is we are selling dolls. I don't know if you saw them out there in the lobby. They're beautifully made from African women in their villages. They're made out of fabric, and they're bound, and some of them have babies with them. We're going to be selling those for $20, and all the proceeds are going to go back to the women in the villages. And then also some of the proceeds are going to go to our program that we have here at Seroptimus called Dress a Girl and Dress a Dude, where we provide clothing to children in Africa, and dresses and shorts and tops for the boys. And we send them, and they have a logo on them. And it tends to keep them safer with regards to human trafficking, because traffickers say, oh, this kid's being watched. This kid has got great clothes on and they're being watched. So it does protect them, and so that's one of our big projects that we have here at Seroptimus. I would highly encourage you to take a look at those. They're very unique, very interesting. And we also have the Red Sand Project, and our vulnerable populations, children, women, and girls, and indigenous people, people of color, LGBTQ, are more at risk of being trafficked. And they are also more likely to fall through the metaphoric cracks. So the project is asking you to find a crack in the sidewalk, fill it with that red sand, take a picture of that, and then post it on social media with the hashtag Red Sand Project so that we can get more awareness out in the community, out in the world. And so that's what the Red Sand packets are for out there. So to start us off today, we have Jesse Wilson, who's the Nevada County District Attorney, and he's assembled an impressive group to include the supervising and deputy district attorney and local law enforcement. And then after they speak, we will have Nevada City Chief of Police, Dan Foss. So would you like to start us off, Jesse?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Christina, and again, Jesse Wilson, County DA, and the DA's office as a whole. We have a very impressive panel up here, but the DA's office as a whole is extremely grateful to be part of this particular symposium in gathering members of the community, gathering different agencies, different entities towards the ultimate goal of protecting our community from human trafficking. I think part of the difficulty with human trafficking and identifying it and prosecuting it and all the things surrounding it is, even if you ask 5 different people that have basic understanding of human trafficking to define human trafficking and to define the inner workings of human trafficking, you're going to get 5 different versions of an answer. And a lot of that is due to the fact that human trafficking in and of itself is very insidious in the way that it gathers and entraps its victims. And so there's a multitude of different factors that are going on there. But one thing that you will have when you hear people describing human trafficking that have experience and have expertise in it is that without collaboration, we don't stand a chance. And so I think that's what we're doing here today. Without collaboration, we do not stand a chance. We're outmanned, we're outgunned, technology's in place, and almost by definition, human trafficking crosses jurisdictional lines. Mm-hmm. So that is a common theme, that collaboration is going to be a necessity if we're going to make any inroads into human trafficking as a whole. Another thing is understanding human trafficking, understanding the dynamics that victims go through, understanding what keeps them in that life. As an office, we recently went, and with other community partners, we went to the San Joaquin Family Justice Center to go for a visit. The executive director there, she talked about human trafficking. She's been there for years. They provided services to countless numbers of human trafficking victims, and she describes some of the inner workings from her personal perspective, and they line up with the research. Someone has to come to that Family Justice Center in San Joaquin 7 or 8 times and receive services before they even stand a chance of breaking free from that life. This is the type of understanding we have. And what we're here today is to continue that type of collaboration amongst the community, amongst agencies in the community, to try to make a positive impact. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the people that do have a better understanding of this. And first and foremost is going to be Chief of Police of Nevada City, Dan Foss. Dan?
Thank you, Jesse. So, is it me? I just want to make sure I'm not crowding, because they told me I was last, now I'm first. Am I good?
You're good to go.
Okay.
Oh, well, actually, the slides are set up for Helena's to go first.
Okay, it was nice meeting you all. I'll be back.
All right, so without further ado, we're going to have Supervising Deputy District Attorney and our SVU prosecutor, Helena's, and Dan Foss will be in store here pretty soon.
Make sure I'm holding this right. There were very specific instructions on not interfering with the Wi-Fi. So good morning, everyone. My name is Helena's Hill. I am, as Jesse indicated, I'm a prosecutor with the Nevada County District Attorney's Office, and the focus of my work in our office is working with crime victims who have endured sexual assault, many of these being children. Which explains my particular appreciation to Christina for having involved me in this wonderful symposium. I am lucky that I am not alone in giving this presentation, because the way that I am able to do the work that I do to support our children in the community and victims of sexual assault is I get to work with some really phenomenal detectives in our allied agencies who have much more expertise than I do. Regarding the ways in which children tend to be exploited. The focus of our presentation is going to be on internet crimes against children. So I think Chief Foss had described it as sort of a cousin to human trafficking. And we certainly do see children in this era being targeted and exploited through the frequent access that they have to social media. And so the hope that I have with my fellow colleagues here is that we can address some of the issues that we frequently see prosecuting these types of cases that involve, again, internet crimes against children, and hope that we are able to empower parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, the members of this community to keep your kids safe. So with that, I'm going to take a seat and we'll just start moving through some of these slides. Thank you. Oh, perfect, thank you. All right. So there's common categories of crimes that I frequently encounter in our county that involve children who are being targeted online and potentially being sexually abused. A very disturbing category of crimes that I routinely see land on my desk is what unfortunately is referred to as child pornography cases. The accurate term for that is child sexual abuse material. And the reason I stress that folks use that term is because a child cannot consent to making a sexual production of his or herself. These children are targeted, they are exploited. Oftentimes the descriptors that I see in the reports I receive from police are enough for me. I don't need to see the images. It is graphic enough, it is horrifying enough, and it is truly a tragedy that not only are there individuals who are producing this material and exploiting children, but then we have our noble members of law enforcement who are then having to suffer secondary trauma by having to watch these recordings, document them for me so that I can ensure that these individuals are prosecuted and brought to justice. The other category of crime that we frequently see is commercial exploitation of children. Sometimes we see overlap of that with the CSAM cases, and I'll pass the mic along to my colleagues so that they can talk a little bit about what the CSEC crimes that we see entail. The other category of cases that I frequently see are what I coined the sextortion cases. So we have kids, who are in middle school, who are in high school, and in the era that we live in, social media is prevalent. And these include all the varying applications that they can access. Snapchat, Discord, there's a whole bevy of others. And oftentimes you'll have these young people going onto these applications thinking that they are engaging with peers, and in reality they're not. They're communicating with a grown adult who is portraying themselves as a peer. And it may actually, be someone that they know. And then being put in a situation where they're being forced to produce nude videos, nude photographs, to provide these to the requester because they're being blackmailed. Oftentimes what we see with the female targets is that if they don't provide the material that's requested, then it's going to be distributed. Oftentimes what we see with male subjects is that if they don't provide money, then the material is going to be distributed. So I'm going to pass along the mic to talk about some of these three categories of cases with these three lovely gentlemen, and we can appreciate your time.
Hello everyone, my name is Devin Bossy. I am a detective for the Grass Valley Police Department. I've been with Grass Valley Police for about 5 years, and a detective for one of those years. One of our duties as a detective, we investigate internet crimes against children, which are very in-depth investigations. They take months to locate these perpetrators, to prosecute them, and whatnot. So the internet crimes against children, it's an online reporting database we have access to. It spans across the U.S., involving over thousands, maybe 5,000 agencies, where law enforcement receive cyber tips, which begins our investigation. And we'll cover how these cyber tips are generated. Sometimes they are self-reported by victims. Others are reported by other providers, internet service providers and whatnot, who constantly monitor things that are uploaded to the internet. So in my experience, typically is involving children. but adults can be victims to similar offenses. And for children, obviously, with modern technology, their hands are on could be potentially a lot of good things, but also bad things as well. The internet's a great thing, but people also use it for evil. And there are evil people in this world who target minors for sexual gratifications or exploitations. Often, we receive these cyber tips by victims locally. Sometimes it's across the U.S. It just depends on where this victim resides. And while we also stress all these crimes against children, like I said, adults can be victims to similar offenses. One of these is called revenge pornography. I don't know if any of you have heard of such, but it can also be very detrimental to one's life, whether it's emotionally, mentally, or financially. It's very impactful for someone's life. But obviously, for children, they are very naive, they are very vulnerable and trusting, and unfortunately people take advantage of that. So we'll kind of cover some specifics over child sexual abuse material and the databases we receive such information from.
Hello everyone, I'm Officer Kevin Stofflet. I'm the School Resource Officer for the Nevada City Police Department. I'm also part of the ICAC task force. Like Detective Bossi said, it's a national organization, and all three of us are representatives from our respective departments who investigate these internet crimes against children. Like DDA Hill mentioned, sextortion is an extremely prevalent crime that we investigate through the ICAC network, and typically it's using force or threats to obtain something of value. And in this case, the item of value is typically going to be CSAM, that child sexual abuse material, or sometimes financial gain for these predators. Typically what you'll see with sextortion is the suspects will use social engineering tactics to lure people in online. So they'll either try to gain the victim's trust in some way, maybe pretending to be someone else that they trust, or in a lot of instances, it'll be, they'll steal a model's photographs off the internet, create a fake Instagram profile, fake Facebook profile, and lure these juveniles in to communicate with them, and try to use these social engineering tactics and this deception to build a kind of a relationship with them to gain their trust. At that point, they will ask for CSAM. They'll ask these juveniles to produce child sexual abuse material. And once they have that child sexual abuse material, they'll use that as a tool to extort additional material from the juveniles. So typically with males, I've investigated several cases with male victims where the suspect is after financial gain. So they will coerce or convince a male victim to produce this material for them and send it to them. And once they have that, they will threaten to expose the imagery to their peers if they don't comply with their requests. And a lot of the time the request is for financial gain, so they'll say that you need to get me those preloaded gift cards, provide me with the gift cards, credit card numbers, and try to get money from them. And if they don't comply with that, sometimes they release the imagery to the victim's peers, sometimes they don't. In my experience, I've investigated several of these cases, and the suspects never followed through. My assumption with that is they have so many people that they're victimizing at one time that if one person stops communicating with them, they can just move on to the next victim. Also in my experience with juvenile female victims, there is a market for this CSAM imagery, right? It is an item of value. These people do trade it, they hoard it, they exchange it for money with one another, and so there is demand for these images. So they are incentivized, not just as predators themselves to collect this for their own sexual gratification, but to exchange it with other people as well. So there is demand for them to continue to do this. And I don't want to take too much time, but I do want to go over a couple of prevention tips. For those of you that have children and juveniles in your lives, I work with the juveniles every day. Technology is extremely important to them. Social media is extremely important to them in this day and age. I can't give you specific tips about what apps are good, what apps are bad, right? Because there could be apps or websites that are stereotypical for being bad, but could be used for something good, right? I can't tell you Snapchat is something you shouldn't let your juvenile use. It's not about good apps and bad apps, it's about good behavior and bad behavior. So when you have juveniles and they're getting access to electronic devices, I can't tell you the age that exactly you should give this kid should have access to a phone, but look at things like their behavior and how they deal with rules and things in your household, or whatever your relationship to this juvenile is. Do they follow standard household rules, right? When you ask them to do something, are they following it through with them? Do they have the responsibility to have the power of a cell phone in their hand? And using rules like that and using that as the basis for if they're responsible enough to have technology or not, you can start having conversations with them about being aware of these types of crimes so they don't become a victim. Sexting is extremely important. Make sure you have a conversation with a juvenile in your life about sexting, about the potential for them to be victimized. Like Detective Bossy talked about revenge porn. Sexting is another form of that, where people may consensually send an image, maybe juvenile to juvenile, peer to peer, and then that image is used to extort or to coerce them to do something. So it is important to have open conversations with the children in your lives about the potential for them to be exploited online. I think that's really important. That's something I want to start in our school systems, about going around and educating our juveniles on the dangers of the internet. One thing to keep in mind is this Online Privacy Act. It's COPA, the Children's Online Privacy Act of 1988. What it does is it prevents social media platforms from gathering information from juveniles under the age of 13, right? So most electronic service providers, most social media platforms, actually, it's in their terms of service that no one under the age of 13 can have access to it, because they're not legally allowed to collect their information. So as parents or grandparents, aunts and uncles, bear that in mind, that if the juveniles in your lives are on social media platforms, they're violating the terms of service if they're under the age of 13. That could just be another step for you to kind of delay that exposure to social media. Something else I want to bring to mind is mental health issues that can happen, not just because of them getting exploited online, but from social media as well. And I'm not saying social media is horrible and no one should have access to it, but it is a place where children are being taken advantage of online, being exploited online.
So I'm hello?
Yeah, there's a button on the bottom.
There's a button on the bottom?
Can you hear me?
So I'm hoping that so I put up on this screen, these are some resources that parents can utilize, as well as youth, when they are experiencing things like realizing someone has posted an image about them. And I'm hoping that you gentlemen can kind of speak to your experience. Maybe first we talk about the ICACtaskforce.org. How can that service be of use to folks in this community?
So ICAC Task Force, okay. So ICACtaskforce.org is just the overall website that's used by investigators and others to access the ICAC network. I'm sure there are educational materials as well on there.
There are.
Okay.
There are. So jot that down if you want to take a look at it. And it certainly does include information about how law enforcement does get involved in these cases, but it also does contain some helpful information. Take It Down is another resource. So I mentioned that if you have a situation with a youth who has discovered that someone has taken an inappropriate image of them and has posted it up, this is a service of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This is what we refer to often as NCMEC. They oftentimes are the ones that provide the tips to law enforcement that there is child sexual abuse material being uploaded, disseminated. anything that you guys want to share about that particular service and how it can be used?
Yeah, I'll add on Take It Down. Take It Down is a great resource, especially for children who believe they have been exploited and have shared some potentially inappropriate photos, videos, whatnot of themselves. This website basically creates a electronic or a digital fingerprint for said file, which includes a video or image. And then this reporting system then tells us, it creates a cyber tip for us for notification and potential investigation. And it's a self-reporting system, so if your children believe they are a victim of this, they can go on this website and type a brief narrative of why they think they're the victim of this or what had happened, circumstances of the incident. Like I said, that creates the cyber tip for us, which initiates our investigation.
And the third resource that we have listed up there is IC3. It's the Internet Crime Complaint Center. So that's run by the FBI. So any kind of crime that takes place on the internet, you can go on there and generate your own report with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That can be child exploitation, financial crimes. I recommend that even when someone comes in to report bank fraud or something mundane like that to the police department, that they also go onto IC3 and generate a report that way. People might be, especially juveniles, might be too nervous to report this, right? It's extremely embarrassing, it's very stressful. They may be too scared to reach out to someone. So knowing that there is a way to kind of anonymously reach out and generate a report and get some help, that's a good resource for people to, especially kids, adults, anyone, have available to them. And something I like to say to the kids at school is no mistake is too big. Right? No mistake's too big. You can ask for help for anything. And that's something important to reassure the juveniles in your lives about, is that no matter what's happened or how mad you're going to be, nothing's too big that we can't fix and we can't work on.
We have a limited amount of time to speak with you all, and I want to at least provide an opportunity for some questions and answers. All the way to my right, we have Detective Odegaard. He is with the Nevada County Sheriff's Office. I'll allow him to introduce himself further. He and I oftentimes work with each other on cases involving children who have been sexually exploited, as I work on with the other fine gentlemen that are here. So before I pass it on to him, I think many of the things that Officer Stofflith has brought up for you all to consider and having these conversations with your kids. I think that is what's critical, is having conversations with your children, having open dialogue with them. They are going to use social media, especially as they get older. We all have specific rules that apply in our households with respect to our children and how they are able to access the internet and whatnot. But what I have found seems to be the most effective way to kind of supervise our kids and make sure that they're safe is that you are having ongoing dialogue. This isn't a conversation that you are just having in a lecture type format on one occasion. Let it be an ongoing communication about the risks and dangers that exist out there. Kids are young, their brains aren't fully developed, and they are going to be engaging with peers, and they are living in a society where access to material that can be interpreted as obscene by individuals of our generation and the older generations, to them they seem very standard. And oftentimes, you know, kids can be disseminating information out into this world of themselves, not knowing where it's going to land and how it can be used against them. So that's where that dialogue is so critical. Talking to your kids about, if you are taking a particular image of yourself and putting it out there on the internet and you have a public profile, whose hands could that fall into? There was a case that I handled several years ago involving a young woman. I'm going to keep their identities confidential, but there was a young woman and she was involved in a high school student, and she was involved in modeling type things, totally appropriate, and her mom, fortunately, was wonderful at supervising and acting as her manager and monitoring her social media accounts. There was an individual from Orange County, a grown man with his own family, who had reached out thinking that he was speaking with this 14, 15-year-old girl, not realizing he was actually communicating with her very courageous, patient, investigative mother, who proceeded to pretend that she was the daughter. And the types of communications that this man had engaged in targeting this teenage girl, to have her travel down to Orange County so that he could engage in sexual activity with her, was deplorable. It is terrifying. But that's where our kids live in. We live in a society where if they are going to have these public profiles and they're going to put information of themselves that can be provocative or not, they can be targeted. And how can we as parents, as grandparents, as guardians, speak with our children in a way to encourage them to come and talk to us, to not be fearful of the threats and supposed consequences that these predators are launching at them. And with that, I'll pass it on to Detective Odegaard to talk about some of the work that he does in this area.
So I just want to say I'm the blunt and overly cautious one. So I agree with everything that's been said here. Have conversations with your kids, but I'll go a step further and say keep your kids mostly off the internet. Don't buy your kids smartphones. I have 2 kids. They're 14 and 11. They do not get on the internet unless me or my wife is looking over their shoulder. So I've sat in plenty of your living rooms talking about your 12-year-old daughter who, you thought that she deleted that app. You thought she wasn't doing it anymore. And now it's been a few weeks and she is. And now she's getting human trafficked because, it starts with those conversations online and then it moves into human trafficking. So, how long does it take to pick this up and take a picture of yourself and send it somewhere where you can never get it back? So you as parents, grandparents, coaches, teachers, counselors, wherever you are, whatever your role is, as you talk to these kids, find out, are they running off to their bedroom even for a few minutes with the computer? I've caught my kids doing that, and they just, with their very limited access, done things that I regret them being able to do. Fortunately, it hasn't turned anything horrible, but again, I've sat in your living rooms where your daughters, primarily daughters, have done horrible things that they regret, and they've been victimized in some terrible ways. And I hate seeing it, and I hate having to have those conversations, but I assume you're here because you want to make a difference. You want to keep an eye out for those things. So just because your son or daughter, seems honest with you, they seem sincere that, oh, mom, dad, I never do that, don't trust them. They're kids. They don't understand. So keep an eye on those things. Don't let them go in their room with the iPad, the tablet, the phone. It only takes a minute. We definitely want to protect the kids. That's why we're here. Fortunately, there are these systems in place. The NCC system is in place to catch those cyber tips that we then investigate, but it takes time and a lot of damage can be done before then. So I'm glad the DA's office takes an active role in prosecuting these cases with Helena's, but I'd like to see less of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. I think everything that he says really resonates with me, and I'm a mom of young children. I don't have teenagers yet. I'm fearing when they enter that age and I have to do what he's doing to keep our kids safe. And so I hope that you are all able to take some resources away from this presentation and do what you can to try to keep our kids safe. Because I agree with Jeremy, I'd rather not see these cases land on my desk. I'd rather we reduce them. And I think the way that we do that is really by having greater oversight and involvement in our children's lives, even though they may not want us to do that. And with that, I just want to allow at least a few minutes if anybody's got questions and that we can answer before I pass it on to Chief Voss. I see a woman, I believe, in green. Yes.
So are the internet crimes against children going to eventually be reported on Megan's list?
I don't know about that. Yes, Her question was if the internet crimes against children are ultimately going to be reported on Megan's list. I don't know, Jesse, do you have any information you can provide on that? I don't have a direct answer.
I don't have the updated information. I mean, Megan's Law, Megan's List, this sort of thing is usually post-conviction in order to inform the communities of who's been convicted of these types of crimes, not necessarily that the crimes themselves have been committed without a particular perpetrator. So that's my understanding of it, that it has that very specific role, is to inform communities and of who may be living amongst them. But and again, I think a message to take away too that is much less specific to this topic is if there are specific questions that you'd like follow up on that aren't being answered, whether it has to do with human trafficking, or any other things that you think us justice partners could answer, please follow up. We will be responsive to that. Sir, you have your hand raised.
So, in the Orange County example, right, I think we can all agree that that was human trafficking, right? So is the law familiar with the character Andrew Tate?
Is the law familiar with Andrew Tate?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm familiar with Andrew Tate. I don't know. I mean, I assume so.
I'm going to tell you guys, because the problem is what she clearly communicated is human trafficking is happening and is expanding. And there are literally celebrity channels of millions of people that are public and open where these dudes are bragging about the exact behavior you described and trying to encourage other males in that same behavior. And the government and the police forces seem totally ignorant of this, and I can point at them.
Well, I would agree that it is certainly a uphill battle. I think I mentioned that in my opening remarks, that we're outmanned, we're outgunned. Technology is expanding faster than our law enforcement can expand, that our resources can expand. So it is an uphill battle. But one thing I push back on is, I work with law enforcement every day. They care about the issues in the community. They care about children. They care about people being impacted by criminal behavior. So that I can speak to Nevada County. I can't speak to Orange County. I can't speak to other jurisdictions. But
I understand what I'm trying to point out is I can see that you guys are outmanned, so I'm getting at. And I'm just wondering if there's an avenue to have this type of conversation at the level that it really needs to be had. Because this huge issue in our community and the community of the United States is being ignored in favor of political views.
I would say that this is kind of a microcosm of the discussion that's hopefully happening at higher levels at the state capitals, at bigger areas on the federal level, and I do believe these discussions are taking place because I think more and more this is gaining traction where people are waking up and realizing that it's happening right under our noses, right? And it's not helping with the internet and all this stuff. So your point is well taken, and from my perspective, it is being taken seriously and it's gaining traction. So hopefully that just continues. We're a little, go ahead, Christina.
We're just a little short on time, so maybe just one or two questions.
Okay, in the way back, and then we'll come forward.
I've seen some recent reporting on the Take It Down Act being pushed through legislation. Can you speak to how that will affect your guys being able to do your job and what it will change for what currently is happening to what they're trying to do with that act?
We're probably speculating a little bit on the answer to your question, but Chief Voss, do you want to make some comments on that and try to address it?
I believe the one you're talking about where they're trying to bring down the websites, is that what you're talking about? I'll cover that, I think, under my section. So there is 2 points of view on that, but I'll try to get to that as well when I get to my speaking session.
A couple more quick questions. Sir, your hand is up.
Yeah. A long time ago in another state, I was talking to somebody in a particular community that's discipline. It's not represented here as far as I know. I'm on the phone with this guy and I said, you witnessed what happened to my mother at the time of her death. We're talking about an adult.
Sure.
He says, I didn't want to get involved in that. I'm from Brazil. I witnessed it, but I didn't even know where your mother was at the time of her death. And I say, Reverend, Pastor, you were assigned or as part of the hospice team. You weren't invited as part of the hospice team? Where is, in this community, it's a lot different when it comes to faith community.
Sure.
Do they have a place as part of your team without being fearful?
Right, yeah, so just in general, again, we can take this offline and we can have a discussion outside of this. In general, I mean, it does take some courage. It does take a proactive person to reach out to law enforcement. I mean, there's resources out there. We're supportive. We're very aware of the confidentiality and all those things. So like any other crime, we just hope people reach out and trust the system, which I know can be difficult at times, but nevertheless, we're here, and that's what we try to message out, that trust is there, and we're here to help people wherever we find them and whoever they are. So with that, I think we need to move along a little bit. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Foss. Hopefully some of these questions will be answered, and then there'll be likely time for others later. Sir?
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm back. Chief Foss, United States Police Department. So I put together some slideshows here. Let's see if this thing's perfect. But you know what? I don't think I'm going to use them. So we're going to ignore these because I have very limited time. I'm going to try to speak really, really fast. I apologize for that. But I really want to get through as much as we can to cover this very important topic. The first few slides, though, I do want to touch on. Was it that one? Maybe we'll go back. So we're talking about human trafficking a lot, right? And we got a good description of what human trafficking was. The problem with the term is it's so broad at this point. So there's two forms, if you boil it down, there's two different forms of human trafficking. There's sex trafficking and there's labor trafficking. Labor trafficking is actually bigger than sex trafficking. Labor trafficking, if you recall, and I'm gonna really summarize all this, is, I remember in high school they talked about indentured servitude, right? And people that used to come here to the United States had to pay for the shipping, and they had to pay to get a job almost, and even when they were getting work, a lot of their wages went back to whoever their controller was. That is labor trafficking. That is still very, very much in place today. That is still very much in place here in the United States today. But my specialty, what I specialize in, is sex trafficking. Sex trafficking is, here's the description here, but sex trafficking is basically any type of force or coercion that is used to commercialize sex, okay? Why is that still being used today? Because there's a market for it, and there's a big market for it. We've all heard since we were kids that sex sells, right? And that's been the case since pretty much the beginning of time. This goes back to, this is not a new problem, this is not an old problem, this is from the beginning of time problem. They talk about this in the Bible even. So as far back as we can go, we know that this has taken place, and it has become bigger now than it probably ever has been, and I'll try to touch on why that's the case. But they really kind of outlined it already. It's the internet. The internet has exploded this problem. So, as I said, I made some slides here, but I thought about this last night, and I think what I want to touch on is how do people get stuck into human trafficking? How do people become victims of sex trafficking? Everybody in this room knows it's a big problem, but most people think, well, but I don't have to worry about it, right? That's just, especially for our generation, my generation, this isn't something we used to worry about. We didn't worry about our friends becoming victims of human trafficking. I mean, where did it come from all of a sudden, right? Well, the internet, again, is going to be our biggest problem, our biggest culprit. And money, supply and demand. The demand for it has gone through the roof, which means the supply is becoming more and more acquired. So I'm going to give a brief scenario, and when I like to share this story and share how this happens, many times in the audience, I'll have somebody that is a victim of trafficking will come up and almost be insulted because they feel like, how is this just a normal playbook? And let me tell everybody here, there's books on this. There's pimps. There's a famous book called Pimpology. He wrote a book of how to get women to work for you so that you could be a trafficker. If you're in human trafficking, you cannot forget, human trafficking has to have a trafficker for human trafficking to exist. So it is an art form. And it is something that somebody does for a living. And I don't know what most of you do in this room for a living, but whatever you do, you probably do it well. Because if you don't, you're not doing it for a living. You have to find another job. A trafficker is a manipulator. If he's not a trafficker. He's not making any money. So how does this happen? Well, first of all, we have to have the demand, right? So we know that's in place. It used to be that, now I do have to preface this. We are talking about sex for sale. This is rated R material. I try to keep it PG-13, but we all are adults, and we know what we're talking about. But It used to be, and my focus is on street level prostitution, okay? And that's where the biggest section of human trafficking takes place in the United States. It used to be that if you wanted to involve a female, if you were a male, which is predominantly the case, if you are a male seeking female sexual activity, and you wanted to go out on the street and find that and buy that, well, you had to go to probably the shady part of town, you had to go to a city somewhere. You're going to have to drive up and down the street. Hopefully you see a girl that you're guessing is working in prostitution. They try to make it very clear, but you're guessing that they are. You have to pull over next to them. You have to hope nobody sees your car. You have to figure out, where am I going to do this deed? If you're a bigger guy like me, the car is probably not an option. So you're like, all right, I have to get a seedy motel for a couple hours, or I have to do an alley. There's so many obstacles in place that even if you wanted to have the act, it becomes very difficult to follow through. Well, thank God for the internet, because now you can order it up like Amazon. And once they figured that out, once they figured out that, hey, there's these open websites, people talk about the dark web and all this, it's not the dark web, it is just a simple Google search. And once you figure out all these available websites, and you can type in that, okay, today I'm looking for a brunette between the ages of 30 to 38, thicker build, short hair. You type that in and you will get a bunch of thumbnails, how much they cost, what services they provide, where they're going to go, and everything else. There's a rather famous quote, and this is a generalization, of course, but I think it's fairly accurate, but it says, since the beginning of time, most men have wanted more sex than what they're currently getting. And I find that to be mostly true, but before the internet, it was a lot more difficult for them to just go out and purchase sex. Because of the internet, it has really made this much more available. The other thing that has kind of compounded this is it's very difficult, as we've touched upon, for law enforcement to investigate these. It is over, this is the first year, well, this is the second year, depending on what data you get, that people for sale, people being sold for sex, has overtaken drug sales in the illicit, how much money is coming in. And that, nobody ever thought drugs would ever be in America. Nobody. That was the big problem, right? In our generation, that's what we talked about nonstop. That is in second place now, guys. And the big problem for that is, most of these traffickers, we're really good at catching drug dealers. We've become excellent at it. It's quite easy to do nowadays. It's really hard to catch a trafficker. So, let me touch on, I know I'm speaking fast. I'm running out of breath, I'm speaking so fast, but I'm going to try to power through this. So I want to touch on, how do people get stuck into this? Because I see online a lot of times, which always bugs me, they put like, oh, they're going to put plastic ties around your windshield wipers or something. When you cut them off, they're going to chloroform you or whatever they do. And now you're just stuck in sex cells. That's not how it happens. How it happens is far more frightening. So what happens is the controller, a trafficker, what he does all day, and what we have to remember when we're talking about this, is a controller or a trafficker is not looking at these girls that are being victimized as women or people at all. He's looking at them as a product that is for sale. This is a business that he is running, and he is looking for merchandise to sell. And what he's going to do is he's going to sit in his hotel room, and he's going to screen through the internet. Again, the internet is his best friend. He's going to be going through all the social media, and he's going to be looking for young women that are attractive, that are showing they're maybe depressed, or they're struggling with their family, or they don't like school, or something that he can just break into their armor. Well, those few short things I listed, how many teenage girls aren't going to be displaying that? Pretty much all of them at some point in time. And again, if you're running a business and you have to have overhead, right? Usually that costs you money. That you're going to have to put out some money to do this. This costs him nothing. He has a cell phone, and he throws out 500 hooks a day, where he just tries to reach out to every young lady that's potential and sees if they respond. Because if they do respond and he can get them, he can get, if it's a younger, attractive female, he can get $3,000 to $5,000 a week off her. So it costs him nothing, and he's going to throw out as many hooks as he can. And eventually, somebody's going to respond. And he'll start having a relationship and developing a relationship with this young woman, right? And I'm going to go really fast through this, so just try to remember this is over the course of several weeks. But he's going to make her feel better than she's ever felt in her life. He's going to show her so much attention. He's going to be everything for her. We all know relationships are hard. They're tough. They're not easy. They're give and take. Unless I've been married 25 years, it's mostly I just give now, but there is give and take. But they're difficult. we figure out, or he figures out that this is a job. This is not something that he's actually being serious about. So it's easy for him. He's faking it. And she's going to feel like $1 million, and he's going to make her feel like $1 million. And during that time, she thinks she has the best thing that's ever been around. But her family and friends, there's some red flags. He has a nice car, he dresses nice, he has a lot of cash, but he doesn't have a job. Like, that's not adding up, right? So she's getting resistance from family and friends. And most family and friends, what do they think? Oh, he's a drug dealer. No, he's far worse. He sells people, not drugs. And he's probably a controller. So eventually, at some point in time during this relationship, he's going to go, babe, come with me. Come with me. I'm going to take you on a trip, the best trip you've ever had. We're going to leave town for a couple of days. Don't tell anybody about it. But I want to take you somewhere, okay? Let me get some water, I'm sorry. So he takes her to California, the lovely state of California. One thing that we do have is we have the highest rate of human trafficking. And we are kind of in the triangle for that. We're in Southern California, the Bay Area, and then it's not California necessarily, but Vegas. Right in that middle of that triangle is where all of it takes place. And he's going to take her to one of those areas. He's going to take her to Vegas, let's say. And on the way, he's going to say, babe, we got to get rid of your cell phone. They can track you on that. We don't want your parents talking to you, but don't worry, I'm going to buy you one. I'm going to get you a cell phone. Well, guess what? What does he gain from that? Control. He gains a little bit of control. Everything he does is to gain control of the victim, to gain control of who he's trying to traffic. If I don't have that cell phone, I wouldn't be here. If I woke up and it said, hey, you got a thing at 1, I went, shoot. And I reviewed my slides and I showed up here. I don't remember phone numbers. And I think the generation after us is even worse. We used to have to remember everybody's phone number. I don't even know my daughter's phone number, I'm embarrassed to say, because I just tell my phone to call it and it calls it. So he's gaining control. He's also going to say, babe, you're so beautiful. Let's dress different. Get rid of those clothes. Let me get you a new wardrobe. He's going to dress her all up for Vegas. And then for 2 or 3 days in Vegas, he's going to show her the time of her life. And she's going to have a great time. And they're going to, this is the best person he cares so much for. He's spending everything on her. And they have a really good time. And on day 2 or 3, he's going to say, babe, I messed up. I screwed up. I love you so much. I care about you so much. I spent all our money. I don't have enough money to get us back home for gas. I can't even get us gas. I need you to do this one thing, this one time, and you can help us out, and we'll get home. We'll be just fine. And what is she going to do? Now, I just explained this over 5 minutes. But imagine you're a teenage girl. This is the person you love. This is somebody that's shown you more affection and more attention than anybody you've ever seen, and he asks you to do this thing. And also understand that culture and society has changed dramatically from what we were when we were kids. And a lot of that is our fault. I'll share a tidbit of that myself. I have one daughter, one kid, great kid, wonderful girl. She's in Davis now. I'm really proud of her. But her name is Vivian. We named her Vivian because our favorite movie, my wife and I, when we were dating, was Pretty Woman. What was Pretty Woman? It's ironic that I ended up here now, right? But what was Pretty Woman and what did it do? It was glorifying that type of lifestyle. And that has become more of the case. That has become more glorified over the years as opposed to the other way around. So she's going to do this one thing, and what you hear it said all the time is, I'm ride or die. I am there for my man no matter what. I'm going to provide. And she's going to do the act. She's going to have sex with a stranger. And then what did he do? He just gained a big level of control now. So the next day they do the same thing. They go out, have a great time on the town, and he tells her, babe, we burned through that money. But don't worry, this time, that took you 30 minutes. This time, I lined up 3 guys. We're gonna have 3 guys, in and out, we'll get so much money, we'll be good to go. We won't have to worry. Well now, she knows what that is. Like, okay, the first one was an adventure, I'm willing to, that's prostitution. I'm not a prostitute, that's never what this was, I don't wanna do that. And he turns like that, and he gets violent. And he makes it very clear that you do not have a choice in this situation. Now, where is she at? So likely we have a young girl with a male that's much older than her, probably much bigger than her, in a city hundreds of miles away from home, and it's with a cell phone that she can't call home. She knows he's armed because he will be armed. Not only that, he doesn't need to be because he's far more powerful. And on top of all that, he will hit her, and he'll hit her very hard, but he won't hit her in the face, and he won't hit her somewhere that's visible because, again, she's an object. And if you go to Walmart and you try to buy something and the object's damaged, you want a discount, right? So he's not going to do it where it's somewhere visible. He's going to do it usually in the butt or the stomach because the John will look at that as a sex injury. You're still a viable object to buy. They're not going to care. And he's going to tell her, plus, all these times that we've been having sex together and I've been recording it, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to release it to everybody. So most young ladies, they might be willing to try to survive the physical assault, but that is even more terrifying. And she's very confused. This is the person that she loves, but on top of that, everybody's been telling her that this guy's, there's red flags. So what does she do? What does anybody do? You have sex with 3 people against your will. We all know what that is when you have sex with 3 people against your will. And what do we think that does to the young lady in that room? He just gained a whole lot more control because he's stripping her humanity from her. It's very important for a controller to make their controlled victims not feel like human beings. They have to feel if they are not a human. What I like to say is we use sometimes our title as a shield. Before I even showed up today, and you heard the chief of police was going to be here, if you heard that, you had assumptions of who I was going to be before I even showed up because of what I do. And to some degree, that's what they're going to use to protect themselves, and he's going to make it very clear, you are a prostitute. That's who you are, that's what you do. You're not a human being. This is who you are. And what does she do at this point? You know, Kevin made a great point. He said, I never heard it, but I liked it. No mistake is too big. Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Well, try to explain that to a 17-year-old, 18 or 19-year-old girl that just got heavily controlled and abused and now sexually assaulted by several men by this person that she thinks she loves. Is the mistake too big? No, it's not. But is she going to be able to tell somebody what she did? It's going to be very difficult for her to do so. So now she's stuck. She comes back home every night and he flips again. He's now the greatest thing ever again. But she starts to figure out that he's got a stable. They call it a stable. He's got other girls that are under his control. And she still has that, he loves me and I'm vying for attention from these other girls even. And he's still using that every day. And every day he gets her to work on the street, he's stripping another piece of her humanity so that she's stuck to where she's at. And this happens all the time, every day. Right now in California, if you go online and want to purchase somebody on a, what day is today? Friday? On a Friday at whatever time it is, 2 o'clock, there's going to be about 2,000 to 3,000 girls that are available for you to purchase. In this area, if you go to the Fresno area, there's another 2,000 to 3,000 girls that are available. Why is there so many available though? Because the demand is there. If we don't have the demand, we wouldn't have the supply. They talked about it a little bit here already. I want to emphasize this. How do we prevent this? You know, what I tell people right now, it already came up in the audience a few times. When I started this, I didn't even get into it too much, but I have a couple safe houses down in the valley, and then Women of Worth we work with up here is a great organization up in this area. But when I started this, I thought I had these high hopes that, okay, we're going to make a difference. And I don't mean to be a defeatist, but I'll tell you right now, I'm not even trying to make a difference anymore. I'm trying to make individual differences for individual people and individual families. This has gotten so large and so big that at this point, I don't want to say we've lost, but we're not going to correct it right now. It's going to take generations to fix this. So, but the first part of it is information. The first part of it is being aware and is communication. I mean, if you want your kids to not use drugs, what do? We talk to them about drugs. If we want them to drive safe, when they start driving cars, what do? We talk to them about driver safety, you know, things to avoid, things to look out for. If they work late at night, what do? We talk to them about, hey, this is how to be safe when you're going to your car, right? How many parents talk to their kids about, hey, there's controllers out there that are going to try to snatch you up? I didn't have that conversation. I wouldn't have had that conversation because it wasn't something we worried about in our generation. But I'm telling you, it is there now, and it's the biggest threat to our kids now. It is huge. So let me see if I can go over this couple of these slides real quick. So 150 billion, these are worldwide estimates. 150 billion, 25 million victims worldwide. You know, when I talk about this, I didn't even get a chance to talk about it. There's several different forms of human trafficking. I focus on such a small portion of it, which is street level, which is probably the biggest portion of it in the United States. But we have a lot that are brought in from overseas just for this explicit purpose. It's anything you can think of, it does happen. So almost all of our victims start out as minors. It's fairly rare that you will have somebody that started off as an adult, but it does happen. That's a big question a lot of people ask. This is for Olive specific. Olive is my nonprofit for victims of human trafficking in the Valley. But most of our victims are, almost all of our victims are U.S. citizens. Who is vulnerable? We talked about this a little bit. So I do want to talk about this. Here's the abuse that takes place. I want to talk about branding. Branding, because again, this goes into what I was saying, where it's very important that you have to make somebody feel like they're less than human. Anybody that's in human trafficking on the street level, human trafficking, you're almost always going to find some type of branding. And branding is very clear of what it's going to be. So this is, for example, one of our clients. It's a crown with a name. Well, what does a crown symbolize? My king, my lord, my boss, whatever you want to call it. So it'll have names. Usually it'll be a name with a name crossed out, another name and a name crossed out. That's because that's been her pimps, her controllers. That's bought and sold her. When she gets sold, the new pimp crosses out the old pimp's name, puts his name beneath it. And what does that signify to the person wearing it? You're going to feel less than human. You're going to feel that you are owned. So branding is very important. Some of the newer ones is the barcode. What does that symbolize? You're for sale. You're an object. Again, the crown, almost all of my crowns. Diamonds are a huge one. Diamonds are money over whatever is usually a big one. So here I shaved this all out, but you could probably read this a little bit. It's graphic, so you don't need to read it. But this is just an example of what you do if you go online. These normally wouldn't be grayed out, obviously, and you're looking for somebody for sale. They're going to list what they're providing, their services, where they'll go, if they're in call, out call. I don't have time to get into all that. But it is just like Amazon. You're going to type in who you want, and you're going to get several options, and you're going to select the victim you want. And that is what's super important. If you're talking to your boys, it is a victim. They do not want to have sex with you. Okay, and that's what's important to emphasize to our young men. What we're finding in law enforcement, for example, when I went through the academy and started getting a job in law enforcement, the #1 disqualifying thing was young men were involved with some type of drugs, right? And that would exclude them from becoming a police officer. What we're finding more and more now is young men are involved in prostitution. And that, again, when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, if you were involved in prostitution, that was shunned. That was not appropriate. Nowadays, if you're a young man and you're a virgin around that age, your friends are going to tell you, go get a girl. Go hire a girl. Well, it's important that we speak to our sons, just as important as we speak to our daughters, that you are buying somebody that doesn't want to be there. And it's important that we emphasize that, because if there is no demand, there will be no supply. So again, talk to your kids. Talk to your kids as much as possible. I cannot emphasize enough that this is everywhere. You know, one of the main questions I get since I came up here is human trafficking here? And my response is always, are there human beings? Because if there's people here, there's going to be human trafficking. It was here, I mean, I'm in Nevada City. The National Hotel, great hotel. What do you think on the second floor? That railing was up there for a long time. It's been here forever. It's going to be here for a very long time. That doesn't mean we should give up. But that does mean we need to be aware of what's going on, okay? I think that's the end of my slides, yeah. So is there any questions for me specifically? I know I flew through it. Did I do all right?
You got room for 1 or 2 questions.
Okay, 1 or 2 questions I got room for. Go ahead.
I was talking to somebody yesterday that I would be attending this event, and she said, well, we don't hear about girls going missing here. And I said, I don't think that's what's happened. So based upon your experience here, are most of these young women, they live in their family, they go to school, they're here amongst us.
So, man, I wish I could answer this in detail. I'm going to try to answer it as quick as I can. They don't go missing. They're living, just like you said, amongst us. And that's the big danger of it. And that's where the controllers have figured out to make it so hard on us as law enforcement. I have now spoken to hundreds, if not thousands, of victims of human trafficking. My safe house at any given time is full to the gills every day of 7 to 10 clients of human trafficking. Never one time, not one time since I've been doing this, have I had a client say, I'm being controlled, I'm being trafficked. Because what does that mean? We have a survivor that shares frequently, was in the business for only 8 months. She says, I will not speak the number of clients that I have, but it would fill stadiums. So how do you as an individual say, I have been used this much against my will, and be able to cope with that? It takes months, if not years, of counseling for somebody to be able to get through this. So if I'm not able to go to Jesse and say, I have a victim here that's a victim of human trafficking, because they're not going to admit that, it's so hard. What they always say is, that's my boyfriend, he doesn't know what I'm doing. And when we bring him to the hotel, the boyfriend, the controller, is dropping him off, and they're going to say, he doesn't know what I'm doing, he didn't know I was coming here, thought I was meeting a friend. Well, it's very difficult for us to link it to them. What I will share real quickly is, it is so prevalent though, where once they do start reporting it to law enforcement or us, the victim is so far gone, it's so difficult to help them. Their psyche and who they are is shattered so heavily that many times, this is the most dangerous profession in the United States. More young women are dying from this than anything else. Law enforcement, everybody says that's risky. Being a victim of human trafficking is far more risky. And unfortunately, more times than I'd like to count, we end up finding them deceased somewhere else. So I didn't share how I got into this, but that's how I got into it, trying to find a victim one time, and we found her deceased in Nevada. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. I'm a grandmother of 13, and I have a granddaughter who has several times been drawn out by these guys. What resources do parents have to get help? Because as she runs away, we pull her back. Police say, all I can do is see her and hand her back over to you. That's the only help that we've been able to get.
So the biggest resource that I can provide, because law enforcement, the DA's office, everybody has specific roles. And unfortunately, you might not like this answer, but where it kind of comes down to is we don't have the ability, if they don't break the law, we don't have the ability to do much beyond that. So that's where it's important to have resources amongst the family, amongst the faith community, amongst whatever you might have that is your support group, to reach out to your kids. And I think you gave a site that might have some resources for it too. But again, it's extremely difficult. So if somebody's reaching out to the daughter, until we can prove that, hey, they're trying to force this person to have sex against their will, we can't just arbitrarily enforce that.
Getting her to go to them. We pull her back.
If they're a juvenile, that would be...
Far. It's a juvenile.
So again, without getting into the what ifs are always so hard to figure out. We could talk offline about it, but as you can see, just as they talked about here, it's so prevalent, and many of them are so far out of the area, it becomes very difficult to enforce those.
Is there support groups for the parents to help so they can work together to help protect these kids?
We'd have to talk offline, but your biggest support group is going to be, again, monitoring. And what are you providing to your juveniles? What do they have access to? How much are we monitoring what they have access to? It's not, if somebody wants to in today's day and world, or day and age, get on the internet, it's going to be very difficult to block that. But we can make it difficult, right? We can do everything we can to try to limit it as much as possible. It's not easy, though. I can do one more, I guess.
Can I just add a comment for that?
Did you mention anything about the controllers using drugs to keep the victim?
So they will use drugs to control the victim. They don't like to. Because why is that? If I'm purchasing a girl, I want her to be the most attractive as possible. If you start using drugs, you quickly start going downhill, right? So they will use drugs, and they do typically use drugs once somebody's been in the game for long enough, because they need it almost to survive. It's a coping mechanism. But they don't like to use the drug too much to control the victims initially. Their favorite control of victims, one of them is, it's going to sound crazy, but it happens so many times with our clients. One is obvious that they have children. They love to use the children as a wedge. Like, hey, I'm going to report this to CPS unless you do this, 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 or this. And what mother's not going to do whatever they need to do for their child. The second one, which we run into a lot, especially if the young girl was homeless or somewhat homeless to begin with, is animals, pets. If they had a dog, the controller will get the dog and say, I'm going to kill it, I'm going to break its legs, and they usually will torture it to some degree unless you do what I tell you to do. So the dog one, the animal one was a shock to me, but I see it more and more frequent that they use animals. Drugs they will use, but they try not to, because again, you're an object, you're not a person, They don't want the object to be damaged. I think that's it. Thank you,
sorry.
everybody.
Dan will be available for questions right afterwards. And I did want to just share, because they've talked so much about the prevalence of human trafficking. And I think you had a slide up here that showed that 4.8 million victims worldwide, and 25% of those are children. So we're talking 1 million children that are being human trafficked. Over 100,000 kids are trafficked per day, with the average being ages 12 to 14. There was a lot of discussion about CSAM material, child sexual abuse material, and when that is occurring, a lot of times the children are much younger, ages 2, 3, 4, that kind of thing, and a lot of times with that CSAM material, a family member might be involved in recruiting them and getting them to produce that kind of material. So I did want to share that. Also, all of the online issues, I mean, it's on, social media has just exploded this like you wouldn't believe. And they say that there's 750,000 predators online at any given minute. And that 800%, there's been an 800% increase in child sex trafficking in just a 2-year period. And with the whole, COVID, all the kids are at home, but they're having laptops. Schools are giving them, electronics to do their homework and things like that. And human trafficking exploded further. It didn't go away. You would think COVID, everything's locked down, we're all locked down, but not with the human trafficking. So it really is a big problem. And with that being said, I am really excited for our next guest to come up and share some information with you. Polly Conley is going to give you the scoop on our Family Justice Center that's coming to our community. And it's going to be really great. And it might address some of your issues where you were asking about services and supports for family members who are struggling with how to keep their family safe and their children safe. So Polly Conley, will you go ahead and come on up here and take it away?
Thank you all for being here. I think just the message over and over and over is the more we can communicate, the more we can spread the word, the more we can educate, the better we can help prevent victims and help victims find the resources they need. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Western Sierra Medical Clinic and have been involved in the start of a Family Justice Center here in Nevada County based on some needs I saw in our community and conversations I had with multiple people in our community. Our Family Justice Center of Nevada County is actually run through our DA's office. So this started partly, my CEO came from out of state and they had a child abuse center at their clinic. And she said, we don't have anything like that in Nevada County, we should have that. And I said, you're right, it's so frustrating taking care of these kids and what they have to go through to get services. We need a better way. We need a better way. But as those conversations happened, I think my very first one that really got traction was with Jesse. We're sitting next to each other at dinner and I said, hey, I got an idea. Let's talk about this. And he ponied up some money and I ponied up some money and we got some people about a year ago to attend a conference and start talking about this. As we had these conversations, it became really clear that what we needed was not a child abuse center, but a family justice center, because we have victims who are under 18 and victims who are over 18, and they all have challenges in accessing resources and getting the help they need as they make their way through the difficult medical and legal system. All of those are complex systems that have different rules and different understandings and use the same words to mean different things. And that's really confusing and difficult for clients and patients. So how do we make this better for them? A family justice center. A family justice center, I'm going to go back because Stephanie gave me good points I want to point out. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men experience interpersonal violence at some point in their lifetime. A victim in Nevada County, and you can see this on here, may visit 50 entities on their path to try to get justice and to heal. That is a lot of navigation and barriers and difficulty. I have a perfect example that stands out in my mind of a child abuse victims who just in the first day, when we were just trying to get them safe from law enforcement being involved to them being in foster care that night, they had spoken to or seen 10 or 12 different people, and it was 14 hours before we had them in a safe place where they could get a cuddle and get tucked in and get some food. And that is not ideal. That is not fair to a little toddler or a 5-year-old to have to go through. So how do we do that better? And mind you, that's just day one. That's day one of trying to get help. And they had that many stops and that many visits, many of which were not in Nevada County. They had to be driven to Sacramento to get an exam, right? That's really difficult. And so the conversation became, how do we look at the models being used throughout the United States to build something that can serve our county and our unique needs? And the answer to that is a Family Justice Center. It makes it so that it's kind of a one-stop shop. It's one place where victims can come and they can receive their services from all different organizations. They have to do one interview, not 10 interviews. They don't have to over and over justify why they need help, why they need services. There's one person who's helping them navigate that, who's reaching out to the services we need. That looks different for every victim. Some victims need help with housing, some victims need help with food, most victims need help with mental health services, some are interested in law enforcement and going down that route, and some are not. But they all need those services. So how do we make it so that that can happen? And it's building a center where all of these community partners, who by the way, are already doing this work. It's not like we don't have people in this community who don't care about these things and are ignoring them. There's people who are working so hard. Let's get all of our resources together so we're working together and making it easier for that patient and easier for ourselves to help serve them. I think this is vital in helping with domestic violence, child abuse, sex trafficking, elder abuse, stalking, all of these things, sexual assault, all of these things are served by a Family Justice Center. This is a national organization movement. This is not just us being clever and coming up with a cute idea. This is us looking at, just like Jesse said, recently we went to San Joaquin Valley, but we've also been up to Susanville. We've gone to multiple conferences. Many of us are all going to a conference in a month together, so we're all going to get to hang out even more. We're looking at who's doing this work, how are they doing it? And the conference we went to last year, the most useful piece for me was going to the rural breakout session. You know, so many of the presenters are in San Diego or San Francisco or New York, and they have these big, beautiful buildings, and they have a ton of funding, and you think, oh, well, we don't have any of that, we can't do that. But it was going to a rural breakout session and talking to people in communities even smaller than ours. How are you doing that? How are you staffing that? What are the details? How can I know? And so we're learning from these partners throughout the nation and throughout the state of how we can bring it to Nevada County and tailor it to our needs. There are 300 Family Justice Centers internationally, 117 Family Justice Centers in the US, and 24 in California. Currently, there are 4 emerging Family Justice Centers. We are one of those 4, and we are only the 2nd rural county to have a Family Justice Center. My master's thesis was on access to care in rural frontier populations. I firmly believe that we can provide care to patients and to clients in rural communities just as well as we can in bigger communities, but we have to be a little more creative. So where is our Family Justice Center now? We're still in the beginning building phases. This is where we need lots of support and lots of help. I'm already encouraged by the growth we've seen. I think when we started all of this, I'm looking at everyone here in this room and at this table who were part of those conversations, I can really say that nobody had an ego or an agenda on the table. Everybody was willing to say, we're going to do this the way we can make it work here. And currently the funding we got was through a grant for the DA's office. So that's the way we're going, because that's the way we can make it work for our community. It doesn't have to have my name on it. It doesn't have to have law enforcement's name on it. We're all together, we're all going to be in that room together anyways, so let's do it the way we can get it done. So right now, We've got a grant, we have an executive director, Stephanie, she's fabulous. And we're working on building that framework, getting our licensure, building our policies. The big leap I've seen is last year, how many of us were there, Lydia? There was 4 of us at the conference last year?
Yes.
And I begged and pleaded, and I paid for some, and Jesse paid for some, and we made it work. I think we have a much bigger, we have more than double, almost triple that number going to a similar conference this year. That alone shows the buy-in, the investment, and the value that all of our partners in law enforcement, in social services, and victim advocates can see the value of what this provides for our clientele. So right now, we currently are in process for getting our 501c3, correct, Stephanie? So soon, anytime, you can start to donate to us. And I think the Nevada County has a generous nonprofit organization that's supporting us in that, and I'm grateful for that we're in that county and have those services. We're working right now on building the partnerships, building the MOUs. That means our contracts and agreements, like I will provide this and you provide that, and we're going to work together on this. So we're making all those interagency agreements right now, and then developing how is it going to be governed. What does that board of directors look like? Who's managing this? Where is this being held? All those kind of things. We have lots of options and thoughts and feelings about that, and we're pounding that out. We're also working on how do we build a long-term plan so that we can have medical exams up here in Nevada County. That's a big project, but I think we have a path forward, and we can really see in 2 or 3 years that will be completed. And same for this Family Justice Center. I can really see within a year, we're really going to be a lot farther along than we are even this year. I want to add, so this is our strategic plan. You can kind of review how we're working on that right now. And Stephanie's driving this. She probably should be doing this talk, but I got asked, I don't know why. I want to add, when we think about sex trafficking, it's not a picture of always who the movies or media would make us think is the victim. The victims are somebody who has a weakness that these perpetrators take advantage of. And the way we help prevent sex trafficking is we're the social safety net in our community to reach out to the kids who maybe other people aren't thinking about. Reach out to the kids who don't quite fit in, who are a little bit different, the kids who are LGBTQ, the kids who struggle socially, the kids who don't have a supportive family life. This is where we can make a difference as community members in helping prevent it. The more positive social relationships these kids have in their lives, the more safe adults that they can talk to who can be like, hey, that sounds like a concern to me. Are you sure that's safe? And sometimes that can be mom, because sometimes teenagers don't want to hear from their mom. I know my teenagers, I came back from the conference last year, and my mind was blown by the number of teenage boys in the US who had committed suicide within 8 hours of being sexploited. It just killed me. I had teenage boys. And I came home and I think they're so done with me, but I was like talking about it nonstop. But you have to be that for your kids. They don't necessarily want to hear it from me. They're rolling their eyes. They're like, oh, do you think I'm an idiot, Mom? But they need to know. I said, well, I don't think you're an idiot. And that's what happens is you get tricked into something and then you're embarrassed. And the embarrassment of admitting that you were tricked is so awful. I want you to know you never have to be embarrassed to tell me. Like, I will never be like, you idiot, why did you do that? I will always have compassion for you. Come to me. I'm a safe place to come to. Not every kid has that in their home. So be that safe person for the kids in the community. That's really my plea. And how you can help us right now, this is our website. That's the email for Stephanie, our coordinator, our executive director. Stephanie. And soon enough on that website, we will have a link where we can have donations. Money makes the world go round. We all need it so we can make these things happen. But this is really doable because this is work we're already doing. We could just do it better together. And I know that, and I know everyone involved wants to do what's best for the kids and the adults in our community, and they all respect everybody at the table. It's a good group of people who are doing great work, and I'm proud to be a small, tiny piece of it.
All right, well, we now have the honor of having Cinnamon Danielson, who's the Executive Director of Women of Worth. And she provides a fabulous service to our community, and please give her a warm welcome. Seat up here, that's fine. Hello, everybody. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to stand here and share a little bit. I do want to acknowledge just an appreciation for the team of law enforcement that were here just to share with us all that they know, their expertise in this area. I also am excited about the Family Justice Center because it's so important. It will make providing services easier for victims. And so as an agency here in this county, we're just really supportive of that and excited to work with them. So thank you for that. We have heard some overwhelming truths today, and it is just shocking to hear what is happening. It's shocking to hear about the depravity of man. It's just shocking to know that this is happening under our noses. And so I want to share a couple of things just in what is actually available for resources, because there is an answer and a lot of really good people are working hard to help. And so I want to just start by I'm going to have my two helpers from Women of Worth. This is Jillian and Alexa, and they have some goodies. So I'm going to send them around to see you, but I want to ask some questions because I'm hoping that this information will give us some hope about good things that are happening. And so I just want to ask, how many agencies do you think are in a 100-mile radius of where we're standing right here that offer some sort of services, but specifically a safe house for women escaping trafficking? How many agencies do you think are in a 100-mile radius of right here? I want to see hands. One? All right, give her something over there. Yes, ma'am? 20, good number. That's a little more hopeful than the one. Anybody else want to throw a number? Yes. 2 in a 100-mile radius. Yes, ma'am. 3, great guess. You can give any of those people a little, up there. 4, that's a good guess too. 5, we're getting higher. Now I'm going to tell you the answer to this question is there's 11 agencies that have safe houses offering services to women who need to escape a trafficking situation. So now the question is, how many beds are available in a 100-mile radius of where we stand right now? How many beds do you think there is? Yes? 66, great number. Very good. Hey, Alexa, can you give the lady in this beautiful blue sweater a goodie? Thank you, that was a great number. Anybody else want to take a stab? Yes, ma'am. Sorry? 50, great number also. Her? Yes, ma'am. 100, under that, but really good. The actual number is 77. What a great, now this is the hope of a really tragic situation happening under our nose, but this is the hope. There are 77 beds in a 100-mile radius of where we're standing that have services for women escaping trafficking. Those are specific agencies that have safe houses in a 100-mile radius. Who knew that was happening around you? Well, lots of people knew. Now more of you know. Okay, so the next thing I want to say is, of those safe houses, some of them are federally and state funded, but many of them are not. Many of them are privately funded. So I just want you to imagine the cost of running a safe house. It's quite expensive, I know because I run one, but how many people give so that this can happen in our community? How many people give to support to be a resource and a solution for what is an epidemic in our communities, how many people are giving? I can't even answer that, but yes, I'd like to hear your number.
How much I'm giving?
No, how much people are giving. I mean, what would be your number that you would just guess that people are giving? Hundreds of thousands of dollars are being given to help victims to recover. So let's talk for just a minute about what kind of services are going to be offered in these safe houses. What do you think they do? They have somebody there, somebody who's been trafficked. What are they going to do for them? They're going to feed them. Who said that? They do need to feed them. Thank you. What else? They have to have counseling. They have to have therapy. They have to have a high level of therapy. Chief Boss said these women aren't going to recover in a few minutes. This is going to take years of therapy to recover. And so that is an absolute that's going to happen in all of these safe houses is therapy. What else is going to happen?
Teaching them job skills?
We're going to teach them job skills. We're going to help them enter the workforce so that they can provide for themselves when they're ready. But they do need that. They might need to be educated, right? They might need to go back to school, but certainly that is going to happen in all of the safe houses. They're going to find opportunities to earn a living and provide for themselves. What else might happen? Yes, ma'am?
Services like healthcare?
Healthcare, they're going to have a social worker, and ours is the blonde, like wave, Vanna, wave. Yes, that's our social worker. They're gonna have a social worker who does case management and help them make sure that if there is something available in their county to help them or in the state to help them, they know how to get it, they know where to find it, and they have been matched for services. Yes, ma'am?
Do any of them ever have children?
That's a great question. Can you reward this? That's a great question. They do have children. They always have children. And so, are there children with them? Who says yes? Let me hear it. See hands. Yes, children are with them. Children are in the safe house. They are being cared for along with the mom. If they have been trafficked and they have children, of course they are with them. So any other services that you guys can think of that would be handy? Yes, ma'am. Support groups. And so obviously lots of good things happen in communal living that will help them just to be able to talk about the trauma they've experienced, yes. Behavioral health is a big part of women overcoming and having this opportunity to get healthy. Any other service that you can think of? Yes, ma'am.
Legal advocacy.
Legal advocacy, and we know that Community Beyond Violence has an on-site attorney. How awesome is that to help victims? Also, victim services is here in the room. They are also available to help victims to get justice, right? They're not always ready for justice, but when they are ready, we hope they have an opportunity for justice. Any other services that they might need? You're doing really great. I'm going to throw out there one more that I feel like is very important in our own safe house, and that is self-defense. I don't want women to feel weak. I want them to feel strong. And so self-defense is a really important way for them to recover physically, to feel like they don't have to be afraid. So self-defense is very important. It happens in our safe house. Any others that you can think of? Yes, ma'am.
Financial literacy.
Financial literacy, some sort of class to teach them how to budget and how to make sure that when they have finances coming in and if they're in control of that, they know how to handle them. And so that's a very great one too. So now I'm going to talk specifically about Women of Worth because I'm here, but I'm also representing all agencies, right? There's a plethora of them very nearby. We work with them, and so if you call Women of Worth and you need a bed, obviously we're not always going to have one. We hope we do, but we're not always. So we would reach out to these other agencies and see if they had a bed, or we would point a victim to the agency, and that is one of the reasons that the Family Justice Center exists, is so that they don't have to call me and then another agency and then another agency. They can go there and they can do the groundwork and know where all the resources are. But we do want to make sure that victims who reach out to us do have options. And so in our offices, what they're going to get is they're going to get answers to whether we have a room available in our safe house. They're going to have opportunities to get healthy, whether they come into our safe house or not. They're going to have opportunities to talk to somebody, to have an immediate crisis response, and then hopefully to feel like they can get some help to redirect and to help them get some support services. We also have our own 6-bedroom safe house, but in addition to that, we have a small thrift store located right across from the golf course, Nevada County Country Club. And so we also provide emergency clothes for women who might need some clothing, or maybe they have to go to court and they are getting an opportunity to testify, and so they want to maybe feel comfortable, and so we do provide free clothing for them, but we also will sell you clothing, and we would like your clothing so that you could support our thrift store. And the gals right here, our 2 helpers, wherever they are, oh, there they are, they're both in store clothing, my jacket. So we have really cute things. We'd love for you to come by. We'd love your donations. The other thing I want to mention is that what's really important to know is how long can a woman stay in a safe house? In our safe house, she can stay as long as she needs to. That's a very indefinite number, because some women will need several months, some women will need much longer. And so as long as they are moving forward, they can stay in our safe house as long as they need to heal. And so we've had women stay a year, and some women stay longer. And so there is no limit. Not every safe house is that way, but that's how it is for ours. And that's really important for you to know, because if you do have somebody who asks, sometimes feeling like they have a lot of time makes them feel safer to come in. If they feel like it's a very short amount of time, that can be overwhelming. So being the longevity of a bed is really important to women. I'm going to take some questions. Does anybody have? Yes, ma'am. We're done. I'm out of time. I don't get questions. Okay. Hey, I have a table out there. I'd love to talk to you. I know we're rushing this through, but we have so many good presenters, and so I really want to make sure we get to everybody.